me, the banquet has always drawn conclusion to the, what I consider BWT conventions or our regionals or homecomings. I see people from across the country that I maybe see once or twice a year, friendships that I rekindle from 1983, 84 and on. So, what makes convention hard is missing people like Bill Luckett, Bill Reeves from Memphis, who were at my first convention, Charles Sampson, or Mark Sampson from Philadelphia from the first two conventions I attended. These people that have passed from various means of those three from HIV. Because BWT has become my family of choice. I have my natural family and then my BWT family. And some of my friends from outside organizations will say, oh, well, BWT is a sex club. And I say, to me, to have sex with somebody in BWT would be incestuous because they're all my brothers. And early on in BWT, I viewed Douglas Noble, Irvin Rothenberg as my competition because I was after black men and they were. And I have since now, I would say I have matured beyond that because the men of BWT are not my pursuits. Number one, I have a husband and I'm faithful. And at one time, I didn't want to be faithful, but I was. But I don't find.
Number two, you were probably misreading the competition.
But you know, I don't perceive Caucasian men as being competition anymore because I'm not here at BWT to get into somebody's bouillon or suck somebody's dick or whatever. That is not what I'm in BWT for. And I don't mind that other people do that. That's their prerogative. But that's not me, not in BWT.
Let me ask you this. You've been in the House of Delegates about as long as I can remember. How have you seen your role there?
Outspoken, willing to speak on any issue, and not taking offense if people don't vote the way I like. I like to think I represent a conservative viewpoint fiscally, and yet being a social liberal. I have trouble that the national does their budgeting backwards. To me, you budget when you're an organization other than the federal government by having your revenues, and then from that you go with the budget as to what you can afford to spend. But they go and develop programs and say, now we got to go find the money, and sometimes they don't, and that's very difficult for somebody who's a fiscal conservative and budget analyst by training. I 16 years in a budget office for the government. So. But
you've touched on this before, and maybe you've already answered it, but how have you seen the House of Delegates change? I mean,
there's no passion anymore. When I first went to, in my first attending, I sat in at a House Delegate meeting. I was not the delegate. It was in Atlanta in '84. People spoke from the heart, and there were issues like the definition of being, who could be a racist. And I can remember eloquently as Dean said, you have to have power to be a racist. You could be prejudiced, but not a racist if you were a person of color. And I could see that. At that time, I probably didn't agree. In '84, I adamantly was opposed to the idea of separate black and white caucuses. I wanted to run black in the caucus. I wanted to be there. That's where I felt I belonged. Probably was about.
How do you feel about that now?
I think it's been told to me that black men need their space. And I led the Caucasian caucus in Cleveland. And I think the first Caucasian caucus that I enjoyed was the one in Key West. I don't remember who the leader was, but it was a bonding that I never felt before in a caucus with my Caucasian brothers. And I don't like the term white. To me, white is power, and I'm not powerful, so therefore I'm either Caucasian or Euro-American. Even though I like the name BWT.
So at this point, do you enjoy going to Caucasian caucus?
Yes, because I'm there with brothers, and who have like affinities and that. And there are some discussions. I don't think we're as spiritual as the Black Caucus. And spiritual, do I believe in God? Yes. I was brought up Catholic, and I believe some of that, and some I don't. And I was told by a priest one time when I went and told him I was gay and in an interracial relationship. He says, "Well, you know, BA, you can't be Catholic and you can't be Catholic a la carte," which was very interesting because I've been on parish council and all that. But that's a different thing. But to me, the spirit of BWT is lacking when I come to the convention now. There are people who come and they don't attend any of the sessions, they don't attend any of the House of Delegates or the board meetings. They're only here for the social, and for some, that's all well and good, but there's got to be a number of people who take the leadership roles and the spirit roles that this organization means something to, and I'm seeing fewer and fewer of that. Maybe the old horses are whipping down and getting tired, but I don't see a new generation coming up with that spirit and saying the fighting spirit of we have to maintain. And I see it in our national membership. The numbers are down. The number of chapters are down, and I don't understand that.
You have any theory as to why we're not getting new, younger leadership?
Well, in some areas, when you talk to them, they say they don't need the organization. That, being gay is accepted. Being interracial for some of the, and I'm talking the 18, 19, 20-year-olds when they're first coming out, they look at us as old fogies, and they don't need us. But what I don't understand is that there's 3 vibrant chapters out there that aren't affiliated: New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. And I know that's something about politics, but I don't know exactly what it is. But to me, if you've got a chapter of 60 people in New York and approximately, I guess, 50 some in San Francisco and about 30 in Chicago, and they're not members of the National Association of Black and White Men Together, something is wrong with that. But what that is, I don't know. And I don't know if it's our national leadership or the local leadership, but somehow we have to bridge that gap and get these people back under our overall umbrella. Because, our umbrella is there for us all. Anybody that's into interracial relationship should be in our umbrella. Just like we have had couples. In fact, one of our members of the original BWT Milwaukee was John Barnes, who was not in an interracial relationship. His lover was a white man. Now, they had an open John occasionally went with a black man, but his relationship was unwhite. But he believed in the principles of BWT. And when we had PACP, I told you we had the interracial female couple, but we also had a black-on-black female couple. But if people accept our principles and the idea of interraciality and the idea of equality, why do we care who and where they come from and what they are? If someone's going to accept our organization, we should not reject anyone.
You think we do?
I think some people perceive that they're being pushed out. And, there is one person in the national organization that I've had a very severe falling out with. He was a former member of Milwaukee, now he's in San Francisco. And I don't know that I'll ever really make up with that man, but that's probably the only person that I really feel an antipathy for. And I know it's mutual.
Well, what do you feel is the National's greatest accomplishment?
Number one was the task force. I think we saved many lives in the minority communities by having the task force going there. And knowing that there's an organization where interracial people can feel safe, because in some communities, if you're seen cross-racial, you are castigated. You might have a risk of your life. As we heard today about somebody from here in New Orleans, from Chicago, was told that if he continued in this interracial relationship, they'd find him out in, what did he say, a cane field? Something of that nature. Mus and I were playing on the softball team. And, after the games, we'd go to the bars and drink, and I'd be off on one side, Mike would be off on some side gaming. And, some of my fellow teammates would say, oh, you're only there because you like big black dick. Well, they don't know what we do in the privacy of our abode or wherever else we may be, and they don't know what I do and what he does. But I took offense at that because that's not what I'm about, and that's a perception a lot of gay men who aren't in our organization is that we Caucasian men are either wanting the big bubble butt or the big black dick, and there's nothing in between. And so every black man is hung like a horse that has a bubble butt, and that's certainly not true. So, oftentimes the perception is more damaging than the truth. Because unless the person knows the truth, they believe their perception. And somehow we have to educate the gay, lesbian, transgender community what BWT is really about. And it's about brotherhood. And it's not about sex. Anytime you get gay men together, you're going to have some undercurrent or maybe overcurrent of sex. But it's the same way I've traveled on conventions with straight men at work. And, some married, some not. And when they get out of these, they're looking for sex too. So, it's not only gay men that have sex.
Well, what do you like best about this organization?
The people. The people that I've met in this organization are fantastic. I mean, like I say, at one time I perceived my Caucasian brethren as competition, and I wasn't willing to lay out or be laid by my African American brothers, but yet I still perceive the white men as being competition. Maybe just for the attention of being able to talk to a black man. But I've gotten over that, and I feel better towards my Caucasian brethren than I ever have. And like I say, that maturation probably started a number of years ago. And I think it was probably, like I say, in the celebration in Key West. And I wish I could remember who was the facilitator at that Caucasian caucus, because what he did sort of like rang some bells for me, and I can't remember who it was now. But it was good.
I remember it because it was held in the hotel, and I sort of remember. Ron Evans.
I'm not sure. I really don't know. But,
Well,
the idea
one of our members, I know that.
Overall, the organization is such that it sort of helps me justify my existence. That when I first, as I was married with children, and I had these leanings that I was attracted to men, and it wasn't necessarily always black men at first. And now it isn't black men all the time either, because I'm very much attracted to Asian Americans, or Asians also, along with black men. But gave me justification that my feeling in this was, oh, I'm alone. No one else has those feelings. And in the brotherhood of BWT, especially like in the caucus, you talk and you find out that other people have had the same experience. I can't tell you how many people in the Caucasian caucuses have discussed that they had been married or they had been dating women, and that they felt very alone, that they didn't realize anybody else had these feelings, or cross-racial attractions, and so that was very easy. And the exposure to speakers like Baynard Rustin was at the 1986 convention. Man who had helped put on the March on Washington in '83. Phil Wilson, who was very instrumental in the early days of BWT, and he's one of the people that got to meet with President Clinton and advice on HIV and minority communities. Some fantastic speakers. We've had writers. I'm going to draw a blank on the writers, but at various conventions who spoke to us. Besides Joe Beam, Harvey, I think, is one of them. He's got a series of books. The author of the B-Boy Blues was a speaker. I mean, we've had fantastic speakers. We had Mr. Boykin, who was in charge of Steve Boykin spoke at the convention. I believe it was Cleveland. That type of exposure. Years ago, this convention and this organization bestowed on Reverend Jesse Jackson. It's a Lifetime Achievement Award. I mean, that was, I think, the first or the second. I think the first one went to Baynard Rustin, and the second one went to Jesse Jackson. So, people outside the organization know we're there. And initially when I joined, we were the only organization that was in the gay lesbian community that was multiracial. And since then they've formed some group called Asians and Friends that have some chapters in different areas. But I think just by being there, and we need to stay there, we serve a function, because the gay community isn't all white. And those that are Afro are not the sole body of the African American community. There are black men that are attracted to people of other races. And we're there. We're going to continue to be there. And an organization like this needs to continue to be supportive for the future, along for those of us that are grading.
What do you like least?
The loss of the spirit and loss of many friendships over the years. I mean, devastated. I've got photo albums going back from the original, and I look at them, and I get to be emotional, and I'll shed tears and echo, "What are you crying about again?" But I wish there was more spirit in this organization. That if you believe in a principle, you should fight for it. And today at the house, I think once I raised my voice, and it was because I perceived there was an end around about a function that had been voted on once before, and I mentioned it. And people said I was taking it personal, but I was taking it personal on the issue, not about who was doing it. But, you know, something like that. But I guess I don't like the idea of the board taking over a lot of the functions of the House of Delegates. The House of Delegates are supposed to be the policy-making direction of this organization. Even though we meet only once a year, the board has sort of superseded a lot of the functions of the House of Delegates. And I don't know. I don't know. And yet, I don't begrudge the people on the board because they really put out a lot of money because they have to travel 3 and 4 times a year, and they have functions that they perform year round that a lot of us who come to convention once a year aren't doing. Yourself putting in time and effort for your committee. So I don't begrudge the actors. I begrudge the action of superseding the House of Delegates, which to me is the policy-setting board for the function. I think the board got too big also, and this year I did recommend the reduction of the board by 2, and that was passed. But I've heard a couple of people say that we should have an 8-member board, and I don't know what the answer is, but somehow we have to revitalize our organization, and part of that is recruitment. We have charged in our local chapter that every member within sometime this summer, fall, is supposed to bring another prospective member to one of our functions, just to see what we can do. And, you know, because you bring somebody doesn't mean they're going to join, but at least it's exposure. So we'll see what that does. And maybe that's the charge that the convention should say to somebody, bring somebody to next year's convention. And many of us could not afford to do that. But there are a few, maybe 10 out of this convention, that could afford next year to bring a friend. And I mean, you would subsidize, and I could do it. That I could bring somebody, you know, pay their way, own meals, and they'd have a free ride. And BWT Milwaukee earlier used to, as a group, do that for a member or two. And then that fell into disuse when we hosted our own convention. That didn't go on anymore. But for both convention 84, 85, and 86, I know that the group had paid one person that active in the group and could not afford to go to the convention. We gave them, they paid the registration, the hotel, and gave them, I think, like $100 or $50. I don't remember what it was. You know, spending money while you're at the convention. And, you know, maybe if every chapter did something like that. One thing that bothered me at the House of Delegates during the reports was only 2 chapters, besides paying their dues, had a fundraiser for the National. And that's basically one of the issues that when you sign on to become a member of the National Association, your chapter agrees that you will hold a fundraiser. The fundraiser, one chapter used to do a hat check at a bar once in a while, and whatever their tips was their income. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things that can be done. But people have to feel they want to do something. And like President Kennedy said, ask not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. It's the same way with NABWT. You're only going to get out of the NABWT what you give to it. It's a two-way street. You can't just expect to take. And I had many years in BWT when we were going under in the early 90s where I was talking to the liaison and calling Paul Sears in the national office, where's the support? Where's any support? And we didn't get any. And the unfortunate thing, you ask me what I don't like, is that the liaisons don't liaison to their chapters from the board. For many years, our liaison to the Milwaukee chapter has always been from Chicago. And for whatever reason, we're 90 miles away, but they can't get on a phone or they can't drive up 90 miles, and I don't understand that. And our current liaison is a very good friend of mine, and he's been up to Milwaukee once, and that was for a half day during the regional level. You know, and previous liaisons, for whatever reason, we were better off when our liaisons were further away. We saw more of them than when they are from the city of Chicago. So just because of proximity doesn't mean that we're going to get service.
Well, how have you seen race relations change since you've been a member of BWMT?
In Milwaukee, interracial couples, and I'm talking black men with white women, to the acceptance of the black female with white males. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone looks a second time when they see an interracial couple anymore. It's much more accepted. In the gay community, there's still some chatter about interracial couples. It's not really readily acceptable, and that's maybe one reason why BWT Milwaukee is found a niche again, because there is that. But when we had our Pride Festival, it's a 3-day gay festival at our lakefront, and we would see lots of interracial couples, but we couldn't interest them in our organization. They're going to private house parties, or they're going to the dance clubs. And that's the outreach that I would somehow like to get into, is how do we get to the 20-year-olds and the 22-year-olds and maybe even the 17 and 18-year-olds. And I'm too old for that. I mean, I don't even dance anymore. My knees are bad dancing. But I don't know how to approach that younger generation. I'm beyond that. And
It's like what John Bush said
yes.
tonight.
Well, he was talking about even just within his own race, but I'm
Right.
talking couples.
Right.
So now, people like Preston Schumacher, who's I think early 30s, he would be the transition. That he relates well to us older folks, and then he can also relate back. And he's a social worker that works in the African American community in Chicago with a lot of young men and older men. So Schumachers or people like him, Eddie. He's pleased on the internet. I can't remember from. He's on the board from California.
Eddie Kemp.
Eddie Kemp. People like that. We need them.
Right.
I don't know. I think Kirk Reed out of
Greensboro.
in North Carolina, the Triad is good. Wendell Reed is a personal friend of mine. He's on the board, but Wendell doesn't relate to the younger black men either. Wendell's 43 years old, but Wendell acts more like he's 55 instead of closer to 35. I mean, it's a persona that comes out, and he's not the one who's going to go talk to the 20-year-old. Then that's not taking anything away from Wendell. That's his personality, just like I'm not. I've joined the SAGE group in Milwaukee, senior environment or seniors in a gay environment. I think it's more than that. But racial relationships in Milwaukee, interracial is accepted, not necessarily in the gay community yet. I don't know. They say New Orleans, and we've been walking around quite a bit, and we see racial, and we also see lots of young people that were identifying ourselves as being gay, even though they're not part of our community, but somehow they're presenting themselves. Gaydar goes off, and some of those are interracial couples also. And it's lesbians and gay men. So they're here, and at least in this type of community, it seems to be more accepting. What a conservative town like Chicago, Milwaukee would be, I'm not sure. In St. Louis, when I was there for the region, they said that, basically the white suburbs to meet the black men, but they never took the black men back out to the suburbs. Everything was done in the inner city areas.
Well, how is being a white man organization?
Well, my significant other has said he and I could have lived the same neighborhood, same house all our lives, and we wouldn't have the same experience because I don't know what it is to be black, and he couldn't know what it was to have the privilege. And I think he's right. I was told once at work that even though my was a stridently, and that's my former job with Milwaukee County, he said, DA, all you gotta do is move to another community, go back in the club being white. And I realize that, and I resent that. But in resenting it, and I don't know how to reject it, I think Chris Rock a couple of weeks ago said it very well. He said he's a very wealthy black man, and he was talking to a mixed audience and said, is there any one of you white people out there who will not change places with me? And would I be willing to change the most? I don't know, because I would be giving up a lot of privilege that comes from make presentation to the world. I have come from basically an upper middle class family, and I've stayed there, and I'm content with it, but I'd like to see changes in the world. I think our organization is one country in the world. Does that mean it's perfect or can't improve? No. I think there's room for improvement in our country, and there's room for improvement in our organization, but it's still the best that's there.
Well, what's your happiest recollection in the NA or in your chapter?
in the chapter, that we're back functioning. We genuinely like each other in the group. We are getting some educational functions besides just the social. I like, to me, it's coming, seeing people like yourself once a year. It's like a family reunion. I mean, I genuinely look forward every year to meeting people. And, you know, Ken Peters, what had happened to him. You know, it's sad memories, but at the same time, you die. If it's tonight walking across the street by a car or walking and the elevator opens and I step in and the shaft is open because the elevator's somewhere else, you know, nothing can take away my memories. And many friends, associates, some past, some still living, and like the sense of belonging is the paramount thing for me in BWT.
What's your status?
The memorial services, the passing of Mickey Fritchie. Mickey Fritchie BWT because Mickey got parents. He sort of supplanted one of my brothers who had passed away when my mother started saying that Mickey, he felt like family to her also. Mickey, like all for candy and sodas and things. Mickey was a Caucasian male. We had no designs, but we bonded as like brothers. I sort of had that feeling a little bit for a while. And then where Westwood, he lives too far away where we don't get to see each other other than convention and email contacts. So. But
Did you meet Mickey through the
through BMT?
Through BMT.
Actually, he was a member of BMT Milwaukee, but he was never at the meetings when I was at. And was always telling me, "You got to meet Mickey. He's so hilarious. He's so hilarious." And I'm, oh, who the hell is so good? I was at convention '84 in Atlanta, and still hadn't met Mickey. And he was there. The night of 4th of July, we'd gone to the fireworks, went back to my room, and I was there by myself in very little. And I made a trip to the club in Atlanta, and I'm out cruising a black guy by the poolside, and this other guy's cruising the same guy, and I said, "It's familiar." And so I said, "Aren't you in the BWT convention?" He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, I recognize you." And I introduced myself as D. Leonard from Milwaukee, and he himself as Mickey from Milwaukee and Chicago, and that's where I met Mickey. And neither one with that fellow that night, but we each got somebody later. But that's where I met Mickey, and he came up to Milwaukee shortly after that, and he overnight at my home. And at a meeting after that, he came up again. He gave me the keys to his apartment, said, "Here are the keys to my home." But it was just, we had an affinity and something, you know, theaters, candy, ice cream, my folks, you know, it was just something. And more bond to Mickey than I did to my older brother. Now, I did have a twin also, but that was different. He got killed in Vietnam. So.
What do you think is the future of the NA?
The future of the NA, we need to get new blood and know how to do that. But and I'm not striking at you, but I am in a way that maybe you don't have to run every year. If the originals or the workhorses don't do the work, will somebody else pick up the reins and do it? Mm-hmm. And my fear is the answer may be not run, but because somebody else may not pick up the burden. Mm-hmm. And that's a fear, because you know, if you don't do it and the Irvin Rothenbergs don't do it and the Homer Adams, well, I don't know.